Hello my friends and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to wrap up the month of December. I ended up reading a ton of books in December. I also ended up DNFing a lot of books in December, and I'm so happy about that. Like, I really want to bring that DNF energy into 2024, because in 2023 I just read a lot more than usual 1 and 2 star reads, and I kind of don't want that to be a norm. You know what I mean? Like, I should have DNF'd so many of those. So in 2024, I'm gonna really embrace DNFing. I DNF'd 5 books. Most of them I already talked about in like Vlogmas videos, but I did get 31% of the way through Jade Fire Gold by June C.L. Tan. This is a YA fantasy, and it was fine. There was nothing wrong with the book. I just wasn't into it, and I knew that I wasn't going to be into it. Some YA fantasy that still really works for me, but a lot of YA fantasy that just doesn't, and I just knew that this wasn't going to be good for me, you know? So I DNF'd it. I DNF'd You Make It Feel Like Christmas by Tony Shiloh. Didn't realize that this was Christian fiction before I ended up picking it up. Now I'm gonna be, because it like literally says it right there by the barcode, Christian fiction. Now I'm gonna be a lot more careful when I pick up holiday romance. Yeah, I got like what, 71 pages into it. Did I get that far? Yeah, I think I got like 71 pages, and I was like, I can't do it anymore. So I DNF'd that. I also DNF'd Fireheart Tiger by Aliat Dipolja, like 44%. Yeah, I read 44% of that before I gave up, which I talked about in a Vlogmas video. And then I also DNF'd Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I read the first chapter and I was like, nah. Nah, I can't do it. I didn't like the tone of it. And then the last DNF I had is one that I didn't get to talk about because it happened after Vlogmas, and that is Black Candle Women by Diane Marie Brown. So what I've started doing when I am just not feeling a book, I start looking up 3-star reviews. Not people who hated it, not people who loved it. And in that 3-star range, if people are feeling similarly to me at the beginning, then I'm like, okay, well then I'm probably not gonna enjoy the rest of it. I would rather DNF a book than give it a low rating. It has a speculative element, but it's more so like lit fic. And we're following this family of women who have been cursed. Any person they fall in love with dies. The daughter doesn't know about this curse because they never told her about it, and she brings home a guy one day and they're like, oh shit, now we have to tell her, that kind of thing. And that's as far as I got. Honestly, I didn't get too far in. I think I was like right here, so maybe like 60 pages. So maybe I did get a good way through before I gave up, because I just wasn't interested. It wasn't holding my attention. So those were all of my DNFs. I am now going to talk about the books just like in the order I read them, so I don't miss anything, because there's some things that I don't have physical copies of. So let me pull up Goodreads. I read a total of 19 books in the month of December, which is higher than any other month of the year besides June. I was, especially after Vlogmas, I was having so much fun just like picking up whatever the hell I wanted and just having a good time. I had fun reading in the month of December because I was like relaxed and I didn't have to do anything, and I just read and I enjoyed my time. So 19 books, and hopefully this is going to be a little snappy because a lot of these books I did read during Vlogmas, so you will have already heard about them. The first book that I finished in the month of December was Doctor Who: The Good Doctor by Juno Dawson. Again, I talked about this in a vlog and I loved it. It was so much fun. A very immersive experience listening to the audiobook while reading along physically, because the audiobook narrator, I mentioned this before, but like sounded just like Jodie Whittaker, and it was like watching an episode of Doctor Who in my mind. I gave it 4.5 stars. Next, I read The Lives of Saints by Leigh Bardugo, which is just a little book of saints from the Grisha world, and it is beautifully illustrated. And I honestly didn't really think that I was going to get too much out of this, but I ended up really enjoying the reading experience, especially when I started the audiobook, because the audiobook is partially narrated by Ben Barnes, and that was just an absolute delight. So that was 4 stars. I then read Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher, which I gave 4.5 stars. I also talked about this in a vlog. Not my favorite T. Kingfisher, but it was still a really good time. It just felt a lot shorter than some of her others, even though like it physically is shorter than a lot of her others, but it felt that way, but it still wrapped up the story in a very good way. I then read For the First Time Again by Sylvain Nouvelle, which is the third and final book in the Take Them to the Stars trilogy. It's a sci-fi trilogy. Again, talked about it in a vlog, gave it 3 stars. I don't tend to love the way Sylvain Nouvelle wraps up series, but I was really impressed with the way it connected to his other series, The Themis Files, and I'm very excited to see if he continues to write in that world and what will happen. I already ranted about this in a Vlogmas video, but this was 2 stars. This is Zora Books Her Happily Ever After by Taj McCoy. Didn't love it. I might try another book from this author. The last vlog of Vlogmas, I was trying to catch up on my reading challenges for the year, and I ended up reading Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon, which ended up just being fine. Again, check out that vlog if you want to hear more of my thoughts. I feel like it was more so the reading format that kind of messed things up for me. But it started off really great with like a really fun premise, and then it just kind of went downhill for me. But it was still fine. Gave it 3 stars. Okay, then I read probably, is this my favorite book of December? I think this is my favorite book of December, and that is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This was great. This was so good. This was such a fun piratey adventure with interesting magic. I love how it got like more fantastical the more we got into it. I really loved following Amina and the found family. Like Amina and her crew have this dynamic that is just so much fun to be a part of. I loved getting introduced to each and every single one of these characters. The book did follow a very straightforward formula when it comes to this type of story, but it did have a special element. It's Amina sitting down telling her story to a biographer, and so every once in a while in the audiobook, oh my gosh, if you read this, read the audiobook because it's so good. This was probably the best audiobook I've read all year. You could hear where she like puts down the mic and talks to the biographer, and she's like, what do you mean I can't say that? This is the story you want? Like, and she just gives little asides, and then she'll pick the mic back up and continue with her story. And I just thought that was so much fun, and the audiobook experience made that even better. I know I already talked about this in a vlog, but I wanted to talk about it again because I don't think you understood how much I loved it. Even though it wasn't a full 5 star, I gave it 4.5, and it didn't make it to my favorites list of the year, but I still had an amazing time with this. I'm very excited to give it a reread once the second book comes out, which I don't know when that will be. But when that happens, I'm sure that my love of it will grow. Okay, I read A Cat Cafe Christmas by Cody Gary, which was just fine. And it was just fine mostly because of the cats. Like, it wasn't even the couple. I could care less about the couple. I was just so happy about these cats. And I did talk about this again in another vlog, so if you want to hear my full thoughts, check that out. But I really don't have much to say about this because it just was not very memorable. I cannot remember the characters' names. Next, okay, is this my favorite book of the month actually? I read, and I actually didn't vlog the experience of reading this, so we're gonna talk about it, okay? This is Love in Winter Wonderland by Abiola Bello. This is a YA Christmas romance. It is probably my favorite romance of the year. Yeah, like I did not expect this from a YA romance, but I needed a good, especially after reading The Cat Cafe Christmas, like I just needed a win when it came to holiday romance because it wasn't like quite working out the best for me. And this really brought it back around. So we're following Ariel and Trey. Trey is the son of a family who owns this bookshop called Wonderland, which isn't that a beautiful name for a bookshop? The bookshop is in trouble. And he is just finding out about this. And then Ariel, she's a young artist. She is looking to get into this very prestigious art school that her father went to, and she needs to get a job. She goes to the bookshop looking for work, and they hire her, and she finds out pretty much the same time Trey does that the bookshop is going under. And so they decide to work together to come up with a plan to save the bookshop. It is a countdown to Christmas because they need to get enough money to keep the store open before Christmas, and every chapter starts with a song from both of their playlists. So Christmassy. It's so Christmassy and so good. These two main characters develop feelings for each other while Trey is already in a relationship. He's kind of like the popular guy in school and boyfriend to the most popular girl in school, who is an absolute bitch. And our main character, Ariel, like, he used to have a crush on him, but she's kind of gotten over it. But now that they're working in close proximity, those feelings are starting to come back, and he obviously feels very deeply for her as well. It was like, which could have been kind of iffy because he had a girlfriend, but like nothing really happened between them while he was with her, and the way it was done just ended up being not an issue. But I loved the banter that they had. I loved like the situations they found themselves in. I was so invested in their romance and so invested in saving the bookshop and so invested in this story. I was so overcome with how adorable this was. I can't get over it. I can't get over it. You guys, this is my favorite romance of the year. Like, I just loved these two people, and I loved their relationship, and I loved how they came together, and I loved that they were able to save the bookshop. And it's the way that the entire community came together to save this Black-owned bookshop, from book lovers to influencers to authors to the media, like, itself. It was such a beautiful thing, and it brought tears to my eyes because it shows how important stories and storytelling and books are, and it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. Plus that like countdown to Christmas aspect, it was just perfect. This is the perfect holiday romance, and I know the holidays are now over, but you should read it. I mean, buy it and save it for next Christmas because it was amazing. 5 out of 5 fucking stars. And I just remembered that I talked about this in another Vlogmas video, which was the books on my nice list. So I apologize for going through it again. I will say though, I don't know if I mentioned triggers or content warnings in that video, but this does deal with grief, loss of parent, as well as mentions of disordered eating. So keep that in mind. But it was all done so beautifully well, and I loved it. I loved it. 5 stars. Next, I read the Black Hat Book Coven book pick for the month of January, for the month of December. Wow. That is Jingle All the Sleigh by Dakota Cassidy, which is this cute, over-the-top, eccentric, ridiculous cozy mystery series. It's the start of a series. I don't think I'll be continuing in the series, but I have to say that this wasn't bad. I enjoyed my time with it overall. I gave it 3 stars. We have a main character who is a witch living in this small little town where she has to hide the fact that she's a witch. There's a little bit of a romance in there. We have her grandmother who died but then came back reincarnated as a reindeer. Okay, and then she also has a familiar who's a hummingbird with a deep British accent. And like, it's ridiculous. It's over the top, but overall, it was a pretty good time. It's completely unmemorable though. Can't remember the main character's name. Yeah, like, I'm never gonna remember this, but it was fun while I read it. Okay, oh my god. I keep saying, no, this was my favorite. No, this was my favorite. But honestly, I really like this one as well. This is Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison. Another holiday romance. I am so glad that I picked this up. It was one of those things where like I hear a lot of people talk about it and I don't seem to tend to love the same romances that everyone else loves. So I didn't know or didn't think that I'd love it, but I loved it. It was absolutely charming. It did take me a while to get into, but once I got into it, I really ended up loving it. And it's another one that I talked about in another Vlogmas video. But I just loved the atmosphere in here. I loved the friendship. Like, friends to lovers, it's friends to lovers plus fake dating. And friends to lovers, not usually my thing, because I don't like that like secret pining thing. It worked in this one. Plus there were some other just really fun things in here. I really like Beckett and the whole cat situation. It was charming. It was adorable. I loved it. I cannot wait to continue on in the series. 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read, where is it? Here it is. Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, which again, talked about in a Vlogmas video. It is a sci-fi thriller, and it was so terrifying. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's more of like a 4.2 4.25, 4.5 star. I really had a good time with this. If you want to hear my full thoughts, check out the last Vlogmas video before the book haul. I then read That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. This is the first book in the Mead Mishaps series. I was very excited to check this one out. First of all, because of the ridiculous title. Second of all, because everyone seems to love it. I thought it was just gonna be like really silly, over the top, and it was. It was really silly and over the top, and there wasn't a lot of depth to it, in my opinion. The spice was good. I liked the world overall, but like Cinnamon, our main character, it's amazing that I remember her name, but I think it's because it's Cinnamon, you know, like Cinnamon is a unique name. Cinnamon, our main character, and the demon that she accidentally saves, who I can't remember his name, like it was fine, but it happened really fast. I liked the other things that were going on in here. It was wild and over the top, like I said. It was pretty silly, but ultimately not memorable. Like, I had a great time while I was reading it, but will I think about it at any point in time after reading it? No. Do I remember everything that happened? No. I've already forgotten lots of things. But this might be one where I continue in the series. So I gave it 3 stars. And it's pretty much the same with the next romance I read. You can tell that, like, towards the end of the month, I was only wanting romance. I picked up Better Than Fiction by Alexa Martin. We are following Drew. Again, couldn't remember the name. Drew is someone who doesn't like reading. I know. She doesn't like reading. She thinks the movie is always better, but she owns a bookshop because her grandmother died and left her the bookshop. And so now she feels obligated to carry out this legacy, even though she's not really a reader. She like was very not present in the running of operations. She ends up inviting this author, or he gets invited to do like a signing event at her store. And she, because again, like it was someone else who set that up, not her. And he finds out that she is like not a book person. And so he's determined to turn her into a reader. In exchange, she is going to help him get to know the area, like show him Denver, because his next book is set here in Denver, or set there in Denver. I don't live in Denver. I don't know why I said here. So that's how they kind of develop this little relationship. They end up going on these little bookish dates. It's cute, but it was just fine. Again, it was another one that like while I was reading it, it was good enough, but I will never think about it again. It just wasn't that memorable, unfortunately. And I just didn't feel the chemistry. Like that I think is what's missing in some of these 3-star romances, is just that I didn't feel any chemistry. I didn't feel it between the 2 main characters. You know what I mean? There may have been great sexual chemistry, sexual tension, but I didn't feel the romance of it all. So 3 stars for Better Than Fiction, but I will try more books by this author. Then I had a really cozy, fun Christmas day where I read most of the 12 Doctors of Christmas, a Doctor Who collection, and they're following all 12 doctors during different times around Christmas time, and I really enjoyed it. It was really fun to read it on Christmas and then watch the Doctor Who Christmas special, which I really loved. So it was just a really fun time. It was a fun time. I ended up giving it 4 stars because there were some of these stories, like there was one story, and honestly I don't even remember which one it was, but there was one story that made me cry. And I wish I could remember which one it was, because I just kind of read them all as one thing, you know? I didn't pause in between stories. If you like Doctor Who, I recommend. It was fun. I always have fun with Doctor Who stories, and this one was no different. And also, it is illustrated, which was really nice. There's the first Doctor. Here's the 4th Doctor. So yeah, it was really fun. It was a fun read. I'm glad I did that. I read Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree, and I liked it. You know, it definitely wasn't as good as Legends and Lattes. I didn't expect it to be. It was just missing that magic of the first book. Like, whereas Legends and Lattes was like the perfect formula for coziness, this one had a little bit higher stakes. There was definitely more action in this one, we're following Viv again at an earlier point in time. She gets injured in battle and has to recover in this tiny, tiny little town that she thinks is going to absolutely drive her crazy, but she ends up developing a relationship with little Ratkin, who owns a bookshop. And so she ends up spending a lot of time in the bookshop, but then we also have like this villain that is looming, and there is, you know, fighting and battle involved. So it does have more action than Legends and Lattes, but I just found this to be not as memorable or not as endearing as Legends and Lattes. Although I will say that once I got to the end of this book, I really did realize that I was more invested in it than I thought I was. There's even like a little romance that happens in here, and it's kind of sad when that has to be cut short when Viv ends up going back. But I thought, I don't know, I couldn't help comparing it to Legends and Lattes. I really wish that I could have read this first and then read Legends and Lattes, and I think I would have gotten a lot more out of this. So if you haven't read either of these yet, I definitely recommend reading Bookshops and Bone Dust first. Although, well, maybe not, because I feel like the ending of this kind of spoils something that happens in here. I don't know. I still would have wanted to read this first. Like I said, I couldn't help comparing it to Legends and Lattes, and it just wasn't anywhere close to that. But it was still such a really good read. It was cozy. It was fun. I enjoyed the action in here. I ended up giving it 4 stars. You know, I really liked it. I think I rounded up to 4 stars. It's more of like a 3.5, 3.75. Not as good as Legends and Lattes, unfortunately, but still an amazing read. Okay, 2 more romances to get through. I read Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, and I'm very happy to report that I loved this. I was a little iffy because it's a second chance romance, and second chance romance historically just hasn't been my thing. But you can tell that these 2 characters really did love each other, and it was really grief that tore them apart. And I loved the things it said about grief, and how people grieve in different ways, and sometimes the way you grieve and the way your partner grieves is just not compatible. And that's kind of what happened in this situation. So we are following Yasmin and Josiah. As we enter the story, they have been divorced for 2 years, and we slowly get to see kind of what broke them apart in the past. And I would caution to look up content warnings before you pick this up. I was kind of blindsided by what was happening in here. It hit just a little bit too close to home for me. And I don't want to get into it, but like, if you've ever had difficulties with pregnancy, difficult pregnancies, miscarriage, stillbirth, like, please take care of yourself and don't read this book. At least not until you're in a good place. But it wasn't only like the grief and the things that our main character was dealing with as someone who lost a child, but it was the different grieving styles, once again, between her and her partner, and how that made it even worse. She went through so much. She went through such a dark, dark period, and she felt weak for literally falling apart because of her grief. Again, we all grieve in different ways, and her falling apart doesn't, and like that hit me too, because like that was really close to home, because the way she fell apart in her grief was kind of the way I fell apart in my grief, and didn't feel like I had the support of my partner, and she was going through the same thing. And like, I broke down reading this book. There was a moment where I had to close the book and have a really good cry. You know what I mean? Because maybe I didn't realize how much I was holding on to. So anyway, I'm like barely talking about the book here, but I wanted to see more of a chemistry and less of a sexual chemistry. But you could tell that they did very strong feelings for each other, and I liked seeing them get back together, and I liked how open the end of it was. I'm very interested in continuing on with the series, because the next book follows a character that we met in here, and I'm very much intrigued about her story. So I'm excited to read more. This was my first introduction to Kennedy Ryan, and it was a lot. It was a lot. It was intense. And like, I'm super glad that I read it, because I really did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. This was the wrong time to read it, honestly, because I was looking for light and fluffy, and this is, Kennedy Ryan apparently is not light and fluffy. This is very intense, very heartfelt, and it hit me in all of the spots. Like, it ripped into my heart, and I bawled reading this book. So I recommend. Like, it was really good, and I'm excited to read more from Kennedy Ryan. If you have read from Kennedy Ryan and you know of like a more fun-hearted rom-com-y type book that she's read, maybe she just doesn't write that kind of book, but if you know of anything that's lighter, let me know so I can check that out. And then the very last romance that I read in 2023 was You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, and I absolutely loved this, by Abookcircus Amazie. In this, we are following Fei, who is a young woman who has dealt with a lot of grief. Here we go again with the grief. She lost, 5 years ago, she lost the love of her life, her husband. They married right out of college, and she thought she was gonna get to spend the rest of her life with him, but he died tragically in a car crash, and she was there and witnessed his death. It's been 5 years, and she's trying to move on, and so she does, in like a very loose, fun way, not looking for anything serious at all, because she just doesn't know that she can handle anything serious. She stumbles across this guy, they hook up at a party, and then she ends up interested in the guy's best friend. And then the guy's best friend, once she explains to him that she's really not looking for anything serious, and they both agree to just be friends, they end up going on this cozy little vacation together, and she meets his father and starts catching feelings for his father. So, as you can imagine, this is so messy. It's so messy, but it is so good. I was living for every second of this book, let me tell you. The messiness, the drama, the grief, and that's the thing, like, she ends up bonding with this guy's father over their shared grief, him from losing his wife in such a tragic way, and her from losing her husband in such a tragic way. It was truly romantic. The way that they bonded, the way that they felt for each other, the way their bodies reacted to each other, that is chemistry. Like, you could feel it coming off the page, and that's what I love to see in my romance. This was so well written. I will say this didn't get a full 5 stars. It could have, but it didn't, because there were a lot of times where it was very repetitive language, especially when it came to our main character Fei. And I know that, like, she was in a difficult position, not knowing whether she should even try to go through with this, because this is literally the guy she came with, father. You know, it's a messy situation. Like, do I really want him to blow up his whole family situation for me? But there was so much back and forth when it came to her feelings and emotions and the way she was thinking, and like circular thinking, that it just made it tedious to read, even though I know that it's pretty realistic. But I loved them together. I loved what this explored. I loved seeing Fei come back into herself after dealing with so much grief and kind of losing herself. I just think that this was overall so good. This is the first book I've ever read by Abookcircus Amazie, and I'm very excited to read more from this author. Messy as fuck, but so juicy, so good, but also really deep. So this is like a 4.5 stars. Just not quite a 5-star because of like the issues I told you I had with it, but one of my top romances of the year. And then, of course, like on the 31st of December, I finally finished The Complete Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It took me all month long to read all of this, but I did. And I really don't have much to say about it, honestly. Like, it was fine. Like, you know, when it comes to me in classic literature, I love the stories in here. I don't like the way they're told. I don't like the writing style. And there was something especially annoying that the solution of the mysteries, like the first half of the story will be Sherlock Holmes being absolutely brilliant. And of course you can't put together the mystery yourself most of the time, because he has seen so far ahead and have seen so many details that have been left out to you as the reader, so that when the solution does come and he tells you about it, like, that part is fun. But there are times, and it doesn't happen with every story, but there are times in these stories where it's like the villain of the story is going to tell you his whole life story and why he did what he did. And I just didn't care about that. Like, I would completely tune out when that happened. So there was definitely things that I loved and things that I hated and things that I didn't like. But overall, I ended up giving this collection 3 stars. I have been talking for so long that I feel like I'm losing my voice. Those are the 19 books and the 5 DNFs that I read, that I had in the month of December. December was it was a very interesting month, very fun. Read a lot of good things and some not good things, but overall it was a really good time. So talk to me down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Have you read any of these? What did you think of them? Let me know if you have more Kennedy Ryan recommendations, or just recommendations at all based on the things that I've read and liked in this video. That is going to be it for me today. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe. I've been forgetting about emojis lately, so if you want to leave an emoji and you don't have anything to say, let's just do a simple book stack emoji in the comments. I will see you in my next video. Bye.